friends, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm setting up my bullet journal for July, and this theme is something I've had on my mind for a long time, something I really wanted to do. And I just put it off for forever because I couldn't figure out how I was going to do it, and I was really intimidated by the idea and scared to mess it up or not live up to expectations or do something that I wasn't proud of. And I had to remind myself that a big part of life is pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. A big part of growing as a person is learning that you have to try, because you'll never succeed if you don't try first. And you can learn so much more from failure and trying again than you ever would from just never trying at all. So in today's video, I tried to do a marble theme. I don't really know if I succeeded or not, but it was fun, and isn't that the point? So I hope you enjoy this theme, this setup. I hope you enjoy trying your best at recreating marble in your own bullet journal if that's something you're interested in. And I hope it serves as a reminder to just go for it and try, because the worst case scenario is that it didn't turn out how you planned. And honestly, that's not that bad of a case. It's fine. We try again next month. It's all good. So I wanted to mention that in this video because I want to encourage you to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, try things that scare you or make you uncomfortable, and just go for it, because you never know what will happen and you'll never improve if you don't try and fail. So that is my motivational message for this video. You're welcome. And I also wanted to thank this video's sponsor, Native. As some of you may know, I've been vegan for over 7 years, so it's very important to me to use products that are vegan and cruelty-free, and I also like to focus on products that are more natural when possible. But as some of you may also know, if you've ever tried to find natural, vegan, and cruelty-free deodorant, it's quite the journey. There's a lot of duds out there when it comes to vegan deodorant. There's a lot of stuff out there that just simply doesn't work. So when Native reached out to me, I was skeptical. I've got to be honest, I was skeptical. But I've been using this deodorant for literal months now, and I have to say, I am incredibly impressed. It's blown my expectations out of the water and is by far my favorite vegan deodorant I've tried in the past 7 years. So one of my favorite things about this deodorant is how quickly it dries when you apply it. It doesn't get sticky, which is always a benefit if you're someone who's busy, on the go, or if you forget deodorant to the last minute before you're leaving the house, which is me every time. I also love the scents of these deodorants. I have only tried 3 scents of their many options, but even still, I really like all 3 that I have. I think the best way to describe it is that the scents have lasting power, so you can get that subtle scent throughout the day, but they're not overpowering or fake smelling. The 3 scents that I got to try are the eucalyptus and mint. It's very fresh and invigorating smelling. It smells like summertime to me, mildly woodsy, very nice. And I have to say, out of the 3 I have, I think this one's my favorite, and it's the one I've been wearing the most now that it's gotten hot outside and it feels more like summertime. My next favorite's probably the coconut and vanilla, and it smells, as you would expect, like coconut and vanilla. This is the one I was wearing the most when it was still cold outside, when it still felt like winter. It just has a very cozy vibe to it, mildly tropical because of that coconut. And last but not least is the citrus and herbal musk. This one has a very fresh and sweet scent to it. That citrus really comes through. Kind of smells like a garden in the summertime. Very nice scent as well. As I mentioned, Native deodorant is vegan and cruelty-free. It's also free of sulfates, parabens, and aluminum. Because Native is sponsoring this video, you can get 33% off your first Native deodorant pack purchase using the link in the description box down below. Just make sure you use my code PLANTBB at checkout. Okay, so here we go, jumping into the setup. I use an Archer and Olive B5 size notebook as my bullet journal, so just keep that in mind. My setups are larger in scale than what you would typically see in the standard A5 size bullet journals. My specific notebook will be linked in the description box down below, along with all of the supplies I use in this video, as always. So as I said in the intro, my plan going into this was to do a marble theme, and I looked up so many different tutorials for ways to paint marble, and I could not find more than one or two that approached it from a watercolor standpoint. The vast majority of the tutorials I found were using different types of mediums that react quite differently to watercolor, but watercolor is all I have on hand at the moment as far as paint, and art supply stores are still closed where I live. So I decided to kind of just wing it and see how it went. And I tried a couple different techniques through this video. So I'm going to try to describe what I'm doing on each of these spreads. And if one of them appeals to you more, if you like the look of one of them more, then you can use that technique if you decide to go for a theme kind of like this in your own bullet journal. So as far as the colors, I decided to do a pink marble with gold veins. So I'm using the same gold watercolors that I've been using through the whole year. Again, they're linked in the description box down below. They're Finetech pearlescent gold watercolors. For the pink, I'm using Winsor & Newton paints. The peachier pink is a gouache, which is a more opaque water-based paint. And the more true pink, or I guess more cool toned pink, is a Winsor & Newton watercolor. Again, the specific shades are linked down below. So for this cover page, I wanted to have 2020 looking like it was cast in marble with July kind of scrawled on top. So for these watercolor letters, I took the time to sketch them out in pencil first to try to get a good approximation of size and shape. And then I erased as much of the pencil marks as possible so I could just barely see the shape, because you can't erase pencil once you've painted over top. And watercolor is a transparent medium, so you can typically still see the lines. For this technique, I tried adding darker veins or lines using an angled brush with paint and not too much water, and then using a wetter brush to kind of diffuse that shade through the rest of the number. You'll see that on the following 3 numbers after the first one, I decided to start with that lighter wash of color first, just to fill the general shape of the number. I found that a little easier with the more complex shapes of the numbers, and just kept adding these darker veins until I felt like it looked good, alternating pretty randomly between the truer pink and the peachier pink, adding lighter areas, adding some darker areas, and being sure to blend certain parts out a little bit more. And then once I was happy with the pink base, I went in with my gold watercolor to add gold accents just along the edges of some of the darker veins. There are so many different types of marble out there, and I tried a couple different versions just to see what I liked and for some variety. I also had to go for certain looks of marble over others because I could only get so fine with the veins based on how small my brushes were. So I had to go with slightly thicker veins, which translated into a certain look for the marble. If you have super fine brushes, especially brushes that maybe have a little bit of a firmer fiber to them, you may be able to go for an even narrower vein or an even finer vein. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that with my supplies that I have on hand. Once I let the numbers fully dry, I went over top with gold watercolor to add the July on top. And as you can see, I'm trying to add the straight lines of the letters quite quickly. In my experience, the faster you go with your brush, the straighter and smoother your line's going to be. But because I was using an angled brush with a sharp edge to try to get that nice clean line, I decided to go in a little bit slower to connect the straight lines with a curve. So they start off a little wobblier, a little lighter, until I go back in and thicken up all of the lines to try to get them as consistent as possible. And that is the cover page. So I made sure that that was fully dry again before flipping to my next spread. So on this spread here, I'm going to have a quote page on the left side and my calendar on the right. So on the left side, I'm adding kind of a random shape of marble diagonally through the page. Again, doing a mix of the warmer and cooler toned pink with lighter areas and darker areas throughout. For the calendar, I wanted a sort of marble frame around it, so I added tiny pieces of washi tape just as a bit of a reference for where I wanted those lines to be, so I could erase all of the pencil marks, and again tried to get a pretty random combination of the warmer and cooler toned pinks. For the lighter areas, I'm using a brush that's a lot wetter with the pigment, and for the darker areas, I'm typically using a much drier brush. And I tried something a little different on these two. I wanted the gold veins to be a little bit more random, some areas that were a lot more filled in and, for lack of a better term, blobby. Again, these were based on different pictures of different types of marble that I'd seen. So I tried to do a little bit of a more random, organic collection of veins, more circular or wiggly, and then also, again, sections that are a lot more filled in with the gold. Once I was happy with the general base for both of these spreads, I decided to let it dry overnight and just covered it with a piece of paper towel to keep my cats from messing up any wet paint, which they have done before, unfortunately. You might notice that my paper towel is quite stained. I've been using these same couple pieces of paper towel for all of my painting needs for months and months and months now. I'm just adding this in here because I know that certain crafty hobbies can be quite wasteful, and I just wanted to remind you that there's lots of ways that you can use what are meant to be disposable or one-time use products, and you can reuse them over and over and over again. You don't have to throw them out just because they have some paint on them or just because you've used them before. Just adding that in there, a reminder to take care of our planet. And I'm glad I put down the paper towel because Yoda decided to take a long nap on my bullet journal. So here's a little cat intermission for you all. No sign of Chewy in this video though, just Yoda this time. So the next morning I came back to add my gold veins. I also added some splotches, smaller dots of gold on these two spreads. Adding in this month's quote from Michelangelo, which is, "I am still learning." This felt so relevant for right now, where so many of us are doing a lot of internal work and really trying to open our ears and our minds and our hearts to learn about the experiences that we haven't necessarily shared and stand up and be allies to the Black Lives Matter movement. So I really wanted a quote that kind of reflected where I'm at right now, which is very much a place of humbling myself and learning. I've really been liking these calendars that just have the horizontal lines lately. I know I've done a couple like this in the past couple months, but it's a trend of one, as in it's just a thing I'm doing, and I've decided that makes it a trend. I mean, it's a trend for myself, so that's fine. I really like it. I like that it's a little bit more minimalist. I don't necessarily need those vertical lines to know where one day starts and one day ends in my own bullet journal, you know? So as I've mentioned before, for areas with smaller writing or straight lines, I typically like to start with a gold gel pen, and then once that's dry, go in over top with a gold watercolor, just because I have a steadier hand with a pen than I do with a brush. Obviously, for the larger areas, so July on the cover page, I just went straight in with the brush. And if you have a steadier hand than you can totally use a brush for all of your gold lines without having to worry about the gold gel pen. But if you're shaky like me, especially when you've had too much coffee, which I do every single day, I would suggest going in with the gel pen first. It just makes things a little bit easier. And then you have a guide to go over top of with your watercolor. So finally, we're moving to the last spread of this setup, which is my first weekly for July, which is week 27 of 2020. And this one's a little more reminiscent of the quote page as far as the style of the marble, just a little piece on the left side and a little piece on the right side. I am, of course, doing the rolling weekly because this is what I do every single month. There is nothing new to see here. If you don't know what the rolling weekly is, I'll link my dedicated video on it where I explain why I like it, what it's for, how to use it, how to set it up, a couple variations, all the goods. It's an amazing system. I love it. I recommend it to everyone. Might not work for you because obviously we all need different things out of our bullet journal, but if you've been struggling to find a weekly that works for you, check out that video. I think this could potentially be your new favorite weekly. So of course, if you've been here before, then this weekly is going to look pretty similar to you, adding in the gold veins, gold lettering, I did do something a little different with the header on this spread because I found it was a little hard to read the week 27 header. I think it was just the way I'd done the gold veins on this section of the marble. So I actually decided to outline the lettering with this darker, slightly more cooler toned pink, and I actually really like how that turned out. So that's another option, especially if you find that your headers aren't standing out quite so much, to give them a little bit of an outline. And with that, we are all done. So let me do a little flip through of the entire setup. As I said, I'm not sure that this looks the way my brain wanted it to look, but considering I went into this pretty blind and had no idea how I was going to make it happen, and considering I was pretty limited as far as the supplies I had to make this work, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. So hopefully you liked this. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I also think that a marble theme, especially with the gold veins, would look really cool with a lot of different colors. Let me know in a comment down below what color or colors you would do if you were gonna do a marble theme. I wanna take a quick moment to thank my patrons for their support. Thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. Thank you again to Native for sponsoring this video. Don't forget you can get 33% off your first purchase of a deodorant pack using the link in the description box down below. Just make sure you use code PLANTBB at checkout. And with that, I think we've come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you are all doing well and taking care of yourself right now. Sending you love, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye, friends.